Hey Rachel, this is Mr. Hausman, and we're going to take a look at the beginning of sound waves today. So I know that we have a little bit of a few gaps in finishing the end of mechanical and electromagnetic waves, right? Our previous unit was simply called wave properties and behaviors. And in that unit, and I'd love to, of course, work with you after school to help with the labs that go along with that. But essentially, we found out that there are two types of waves, or two shapes of waves: longitudinal waves and transverse waves. And they look very different. And a longitudinal wave, the vibrations start with very compressed or high pressure regions, followed by low density regions. We call these compressions and rarefactions. I'll define these when we use them in this new chapter. And a longitudinal wave travels sideways, right? It travels in this direction. That's the way that the wave velocity goes. And the disturbance that creates that wave is an in and out motion. So do you notice that those two are parallel to each other? Let me do a little better with my penmanship here. Longitudinal. And what are some examples of longitudinal waves that have compressions and rarefactions and another compression and another rarefaction? Well, these are sound waves. So that's why I want to give you a little background on these. So a transverse wave, on the other hand, has wave motion that looks like this. When we took out a slinky several weeks ago, we made vibrations or pulses. And if you make repeated disturbances that are up and down, notice that the disturbance is going vertically, but yet the wave is still traveling sideways. And that's what makes it the definition of transverse. The disturbance and the motion are 90 degrees to each other. So do these waves have compressions and rarefactions? No, they have crests and troughs. So do you notice, though, that they seem to line up? So they're kind of like analogous structures. A compression on a longitudinal wave is like a crest, and a trough is like a rarefaction. They're periodically changing their shape or their position. So what's an example of a transverse wave? Well, these are light waves and water waves. Now, all of these waves have certain properties. They have amplitudes, they have wavelengths, they have frequencies, and they have wave speeds. And that was some of the work we did, of course, last chapter, and I'll work with you catching up. But this is for the new unit. So what else is on this page? Well, we've got some new words. We're going to be talking about some sound-specific words. We're going to be talking about beats and the Doppler effect. So the bottom of this page has some formulas that you may have seen before. These are the wave speed formulas, frequency and period. And then this one's new, so you don't know much about it. And then finally, what's this Doppler effect? Well, we're going to be doing this conceptually. We're going to make sure we understand the ideas, but we do not need to do all of the math with it. I'd be happy to show you. Maybe I'll do a sample problem, see if you want to try it. That's an honors physics objective, and it's a little different than in our class. Let's go on to the first content. So do you notice right off the bat, let me zoom in, that it starts with sound waves, and it just reminds you that we're talking about the fact that they're always longitudinal. And what they are is really pressure differences. Now, if you picture it with a slinky, not this kind of slinky, but a slinky where you push the slinky in and out, you might remember that we could see these compressions traveling down the slinky. However, the better way to draw this is to maybe draw a speaker. So picture a speaker cone. Here's the driver in the back. There's a magnet that's pushing a coil in and out. And every time the cone pushes forward, it compresses molecules. You can't see them because they're in the air. Every time the cone moves backwards, and it does it many times per second, then the molecules are essentially low density or low pressure. And then it repeats, and the speaker pushes forward again, and then it's low pressure. So you might say, well, it looks like what you have on the left, Mr. Hausman, but in fact, what we really see is that it's not made of coils, it's made of discrete molecules, and they are moving in and out as the wave travels sideways, right? So the cone or the speaker. Now, vocal cords do this too. So what are the two parts called? They're called compressions. Those are the high pressure zones made when the speaker pushes forward. High pressure because they've been pushed forward, and all the molecules they're much more denser, right? So that's compression. And then a rarefaction. That's not an easy word. Rare means spread out, not very common. And notice the molecules in the rarefaction. I'm going to label it up here, or there's another rarefaction here. They're very spread out. Sound is a wave that spreads out, right? It's a wave that spreads out by vibrating molecules through a volume. And what do we mean by a volume? Doesn't mean volume mean loudness. Volume means 3D space. So sound waves are 3-dimensional. Remember that speaker we drew before? If you play music from a speaker, a loudspeaker, you don't just hear it on this side. You can hear it behind the speaker, you can hear it up here, you can hear it here. It's omnidirectional. Sound waves go in all directions. There are some very unique speakers, very expensive speakers, that can be directional, but they use ultrasound to guide the sound waves. Very cool. Okay, so sound waves are compression and rarefactions, high pressure and low pressure, and of course they're created by lots of things, but it could be vocal cords, a musical instrument, or certainly a speaker system. So let's talk about the speed of sound. The speed of sound waves is variable. It changes. It's not a fixed number. And it is determined by the medium. And what we mean by the medium is what's carrying the sound wave. Sound waves can travel in solids, they can travel in liquids, or they can travel in gases. Now, we chose air, which is a mixture of gases, but the major reason why solids are fast, liquids are also fast, but not as fast, so let's call these faster, and then gases are the slowest, and it's due to the density. When the molecules of a solid, liquid, and gas are spread out differently, a solid has all of the molecules just about touching in a crystal structure. So if they have high density, then the wave travels quicker. Why? Because it requires the molecules to bump into each other. So if you start on this side and you push these molecules and they're directly touching these molecules, well, they will immediately bump into each other and the wave will come out the other side very fast. Do you notice in the liquid, they're almost touching. They're touching, but they're kind of got some spaces. So sometimes you have to like close up those spaces. So liquids can be compressed a little bit. Gases, they have a lot of space. So in order for this molecule to pass along a sound wave or a vibration, it would eventually need to hit that one. And look at all the space. So it takes more time to do so. And you don't have to memorize these numbers, but 5,000 meters in a second is huge. That means about 3 miles. A sound wave in a metal pipe can travel 3 miles in 1 second. Liquids, well, they're about 1,400, 1,500, so still very fast. Notice how small gases are. Now, what's this little ziggy-zaggy? That actually is trying to show you that that is not to scale. If this is 2,700, I know it's hard to read the numbers, but that looks like a 2,7. These bars out here should actually be almost twice as long, but to fit on the page, that graph, the person who made the graph decided to kind of crop it. So the take-home message is this medium determines the speed of the sound wave. They are fastest in solids, then they are medium speed in liquids, and then they are slowest in gases. And one of the unique things about solids that we kind of take for granted, and I do not encourage you to do this, don't go down to the railroad tracks, even though people used to do this. They would put their ear on the track, and then someone would hammer or bang on the track some distance away, maybe a mile away, and they'd hear it almost in a second. Now, if you were to stand a mile away from someone and yell, you'd never hear it. But because the waves travel fast, what you can hear is you can hear the train coming from a long ways away. So people used to put their ear on the metal of the track. I know you don't think that's smart. I don't think that's smart, but that's an old phenomenon. in class, we were able to do a pretty cool little demo. We have a glass jar. And inside that glass jar, we have a buzzer. It makes sound, right? It vibrates when it's connected to an external battery. So we have a little 9-volt battery up here. Now this lid is sealed off, so the wires go through like a very closed off opening, but there's, oops, I might have just lost a little bit. That's a glass jar with a tube at the top, and there's a buzzer inside. And, oops, there we go. Let's get a little buzzer. And it's buzzing away. It sounds like a mosquito. And that's a little battery, 9 volts. And you can hear it, and it's damn annoying, right? It's like an old alarm clock or a buzzer inside a jar. But along comes a pump. We have a brand new vacuum pump, and it pulls all of the air out. So we remove the air. Well, what we do, that means is we have no medium for the sound waves to travel. And if there's no medium, the buzzer goes silent. Or does it? It's still shaking, it's still oscillating. So if there's no medium, then you get no sound wave propagation. You still get vibrations, and some people told me in my class you could still hear it. And I think it's because of the little wires that were sticking out of the buzzer, and they're touching the top of the buzzer jar. You could watch a video version if you choose to type in that whole URL. I haven't checked it recently. I hope it works. And you certainly can try the Boomer Sans link. I haven't checked that one recently, and I'm sorry about that. Okay, we finished with this. So sound waves, we just said, have different speeds. But let's talk about the speed of sound and how the temperature of gases has a huge effect on the speed. And the way it works is that if you increase the temperature of a gas, like a hot summer day, you're going to increase the kinetic energy or the motion of the molecules, right, in a gas. They're going to be shaking around more. Can you picture that? You know, there's a lot of simulations where you can increase the temperature, and these molecules, they basically get faster velocities. So they have a greater chance of hitting each other. Well, when that happens, they're going to bump into each other more often. If they bump into each other more often, they can transmit a sound pulse in less time. Did you figure out what that means? It means hot gases are faster at transmitting sound. And literally, there's a formula for finding how the velocity and the temperature are related. Now, let's actually look at an example before we do the algebra. So say you're playing a loud sound, but it's at nighttime or on a cold day. Sorry for the interruption. And the surface air is cold, and maybe a little bit higher up it's warm. And what you see is that the sound waves are bending. Now, we found out that the name for that is refraction. A refraction is a change in direction, right? The direction changes as the speed changes. So notice we have cold air and warm air, and the sound waves bend into the cold air, and you can hear it. So this dog could be at the far end of a field and you yell for it, or you have a little noisemaker, and we'll hear it from a very long distance away at night or on a cold day. During the daytime, the dog may not hear it because the refraction or the bending of the sound waves goes away because it always bends into the cooler air. So on a warm day, doesn't the air near the ground get warm? And the higher up in altitude you go, like if you climb a small mountain, it's cooler at the top. So I'm going to record the rest of this a little bit later. Sorry, got interrupted by the bell ringing. So the temperature affects the wave speed, and because the medium is actually changing its properties, the wave tends to bend. And I wonder if this is a word that you haven't had a chance to find out about because it was one of the wave behaviors from last chapter. So again, what is a refraction? It's when a wave encounters a new medium, a new material, and warm air and cold air are acting like they are different materials. And because of the different speeds, it causes the wave to bend. Okay. Now, the formula for how to determine the wave speed based on the temperature looks kind of gnarly What are all those units? Well, basically what it says is you start with a speed of 331 meters per second. Okay, that's just a whole number. That's not a random number. That's the speed at 0 degrees Celsius. So imagine being locked in a meat locker. The speed of sound would be pretty slow, 331 meters per second. Then for every degree Celsius, so the temperature is in degrees Celsius, you multiply the temperature by 0.6 and you add that. So I'm gonna write it a little differently. Let's go down here to practice problem number 1. So it's a backyard on a very hot day, 35 degrees Celsius. Your body temperature is 37, so this is hot. This is in the 90s. So according to the formula, and let's just write it a little bit more clearly without all the units, to find the speed of sound, you take 331 meters per second, and you add to it, and I'm gonna use a different parentheses. I'm gonna use 0.6 times t. What that does is it reminds you to use your order of operations and to multiply the temperature by 0.6 first, then add that to 331. So let's plug in a 35 here times 0.6, and let's do that on our calculator. 0.6 times 35 is 21, and then we add that to 331, and I bet you already have an answer of 352 meters per second. That would be the speed of sound. And notice, it's a little bit higher than 331. It's not a lot higher. It's not as fast as in steel, 5,000. It's not as fast as it is in water, but it's a little bit faster. Let's go to practice problem number 2. This one sounds outlandish. Let's read it. A musical note created by a tuning fork. You know, those are the metal things that used to be used for tuning instruments. And the frequency of the tuning fork is 360 hertz. That's audible. That's like not too low. It's kind of in the middle of your speaking voice. And the wavelength is 0.95 meters. And the unknown from those two given, it's pretty cool, but we're gonna be able to find the temperature. And you're like, wait a minute, there's no formula that combines all of those. So the first thing you do is you'd get organized. The frequency is 360, the wavelength is 0.95 meters, and there's a formula for wave speed. This is something you haven't had as much practice with, but it's simply the product of the frequency and the wavelength is the velocity. So this wave, or this sound wave, would travel at 360 times 0.95, and those are meters, and this is hertz, and the final answer comes out to be 342 meters per second. Okay, so that's, again, faster than 331, but that's actually a very average. So let's see how average the temperature is. So what you do is you put in the 342 over here, and there's actually a typo here. Can you delete that 0.6? It's just 331 plus 0.6 times t. So you have to do reverse PEMDAS. So we subtract our 331, and the 3's cancel. 4 minus 3 is 1, 2 minus 1 is 1. So it's 11 equals 0.6 times t, and you finish by dividing both sides by 0.6. And I bet you're already doing it. 11 divided by 0.6, and the temperature comes out to be 18 degrees. That's a very comfortable temperature. I asked in class if anyone has ever lived in a place outside the United States where they use Celsius, and very few people in our class had, but in one of my other classes I have like over half the students have lived overseas, and I asked them, if you're in India and the temperature is forecast to be 18.3 degrees, is that sweatshirt weather? And he said, no, that's really comfortable. That's like room temperature. But we don't need to convert it to Fahrenheit if you don't want to, but the final answer is 18 degrees. So that's what we accomplished today on lesson number 1 about waves, sound wave mediums, pressure waves, and of course wave speeds for these sound waves.